All right, thank you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining. As Cassie said, my name is Zachary D'Amato. Everyone can see my little presentation here with the Iowa backdrop. I sure hope everyone can see that, correct?
Yes, it looks good.
All right, great. Well, yes, I'm one of the co-founders of Urban Rivers, and we've been 11 years in this water design world, and it's really been a really interesting adventure. I'm gonna go through a little bit of history. I'm going to go into some site-specific stuff for Iowa, and then some metrics on the community, environment, and innovation design. Uh, the work that we've done really touches so many different stakeholders, and it might be lengthy, but like really activating a waterway in an urban environment really brings more than we expected. So, and please wave your hand, raise your hand, just interrupt. It's totally fine. Uh, I want this to be a conversation. It's 15 minutes from beginning to end, so we have 45, so we can definitely jump in and out. Uh, One thing I want to highlight is that rivers is very interesting. You know, the interwaterways are the logistical hubs of the world, and really damaged and neglected rivers is common around the world. This is a photo from my co-founder's kayak trip in Tokyo, which is actually removing this highway, and they're doing a project, ironically. You see Buffalo, New York. I can probably show you 50 of before and afters of said active urban waterways and neglected waterways. But we had humble beginnings. So our first pilots were in 2017, but it dates back to 2013 when our co-founder Josh Yellen, with his thesis project, had a 5 by 10 wetland. So what you're going to see right now, the 15,000 square feet of the wild mile and soon to be 23,000 next fall, all would start off a 5 by 10 wetland. And that was the inspiration. Nick and I are from business school. We're backgrounds in technology, startups, and food. So we didn't have any formal training, but we just thought it was cool to grow plants in the river. So this one on the right side is our first install, do it from basically from a Kickstarter campaign, 10,000 from Patagonia and 15,000 from Whole Foods. That was really the 10,000 from Patagonia just kickstarted, excuse the pun, everything. And we just chipped away building the community. And now we will have our 10-year anniversary next year in our first install. After we had all these installs, we started building a partnership with Shed Aquarium and the city slowly, and Patagonia, as I mentioned, and other universities. And the city's like, okay, what do you want to do with this mile stretch? It's really a mile stretch right on the east side of Goose Island, if you know familiar with Chicago. So we're like, hey, we want to turn this into a wildlife sanctuary. No more commercial traffic's going there. It's going from a industrial corridor into mixed use. And they're like, we need to put some money into a framework plan. If there's any architects, they never know what a framework plan is. And we're like, okay. So they gave us about quarter million. He gave an architectural firm, SOM, a quarter million, and we spread it amongst like 9 partners. And we went up and down the river for 9 months and really figured out like, okay, how do you build a world-class wildlife park in the middle of an urban center? And that really is an educational process. And with that came a lot of discovery. Nick and I and the team thought, of course, the biggest problem with rivers outside them not being full of wildlife is access. And so we took the dead end street and we created a gangway. But besides gardens, like we did in the beginning, we want to bring people to the water. And we feel like a lot of urban planning stops at the river's edge, and a lot of reasons a lot of times there's good reason for that. But I can give you a lot of projects that they just didn't think of this and they could incorporate it. It's not complicated. But we once we build a boardwalk onto the river, the whole ethos of urban rivers and urban river development, the really changed. And it was through the numbers and the activity that we experienced. And so the city followed, they gave us 1.3 million for that first phase, and then they followed on with 1.7 million or 1.77. So just about 3 million in infrastructure. But every phase is an iteration. So we're not a traditional nonprofit. We take the ethos of the lean startup methodology from like tech startups into conservation, and we've kind of blended them. And so the boardwalks got wider, the designs of the floats got better, they got more buoyant. We brought some submerged island concepts for mussels and for lilies, which I'll show in a future slide. We created a riverine section. So this is a living laboratory for design, for research, and you'll learn for programming. And it's not just plants floating on the water, although that's what the eye will give you. And so what we have today is about 15,000 square feet of habitat and just around 7,500 square feet of walkway and programmable space. So it is walkway and programmable space where we have events and a slew of field trips. Excuse me. And you can see this before and after. And the one thing I want to mention that's very paramount, this tip here at this on the left-hand side was the tip of the other section. So there's two things. First, it's modular. And the second big thing that I want to mention is that volunteers help plant, bolt, and assemble 90% of the wall mile. And that's how you create true stewardship. We don't hire contractors unless it's the walkway and it gets craned in. All right, they do underwater anchoring, but all the floats and the gardens and all that is built by volunteers. And now to this day, current day, 90% of the maintenance is done by volunteers. Now we can get to it a little bit later. I'm sure there'll be a question about maintenance, but you have to build stewardship from the beginning. It's a it's a crucial part for what we do and for us doing projects in other cities. I'm going to pause every transition unless there's a question. I'll wait 10 seconds or so. Take a sip of coffee. Okay.
I don't see anything in the chat
Okay.
yet, but if
All
anyone
right.
has a question, feel free to unmute yourself or type in the chat.
So some reference projects. Obviously, the Wall Mile is one. Now, some of these projects are done with our partner, Biomatrix, who makes the floats. This is his project in Eden Dock, the UK. This is another project in Yarra River, Melbourne. Like those two overseas were done by Biomatrix. We did not join that installation, but it shows that this is beyond Chicago. And the next few slides are cities that we're working with that we've built renders are, and now we're working on permitting. So San Antonio, Texas is actually in the lake. So it's not just the linear waterways like the Wall Mile. The lakes are opportunities to activate with trail. We call these picnic piers. There's more designs that we're doing in San Antonio. We have the East Bank Esplanade in Portland, which is attached to existing. So this esplanade is existing infrastructure. We're adding habitat to that. So in this case, we're bringing habitat to an existing structure. This is to a barren lake with nothing, and we're creating the piers, right? So like the designs are not boxed in a linear footprint like the Wild Mile. And lastly, in Tennessee, this is a creek that goes into the Tennessee River. The Tennessee River is something that we will build a Wild Mile type project soon. It's a little bit rougher waterway, but there's a creek that goes right into the river, and they want to do freestanding gardens, no infrastructure. So no people, they can get it via kayak. And this is really for water quality. And you can see there's submerged module pieces here for mussels. So like all types of ways to bring habitat. Now, if you don't have infrastructure, you will not have the same person or the diverse stakeholders from the community, but you will be improving the wildlife and the water quality. All right. So now we're getting to like pilot locations specific to Des Moines, Iowa, and then we can get into the metrics of the community, water quality and research, and design and innovation. So there's a variety. So like we just went on Google Map and just brainstorming, right? Like Grace Lake, existing access. You have some beach. You have the southern tip or the western tip that's got nothing, and you get this little boardwalk, like hu huge opportunity for habitat and also infrastructure. Lakes are great because they're not on the main stem, so the rough waterways, the tidal fluctuation is not as strong. At least that's my assumption in my experience. You've got Easter Lake Park, which is super cool. You have these little access points, these little fingers there. Just like from a designer, it's like, okay, I was only looking at the main downtown area when I talked to Jonathan, but then my partner Galen's like, look at the lakes. The lakes are, huge opportunity to bring habitat and people onto the water. I'm biased. I think infrastructure is the holy grail, but floating wetlands, or we call them freestanding wetlands with no infrastructure, is definitely plausible here. I just think this is pretty cool, unique. I'd love to come see it. Riverview, you have a park here and no habitat. Now you can put freestandings in the middle and just create like archipelago type of environment. You could build infrastructure. You can do a little bridge. I mean, Listen, it's easy to design with a blank checkbook, but we got to dream somehow. And then you have the downtown Riverwalk, which is again is switching gears here. Now if it's more tidal. I know that Andy gave me some information that it can fluctuate 5 to 10 feet. The foot per second is between 5 and 7, which is 5 and 7 foot per second during a storm isn't problematic. I do know that even though this is like a docile lake with the dams, when there's a storm, you got to release the water. Uh, and I'm going to show you a reason why this is. I love the downtown area because I like it where all the people are, but the lakes are definitely great options. The North River Walk by the skate park is pretty cool. And then this is a point I want to make here, Prospect Park. Okay, this is a great location. You have access, you have boat access, you have existing docks. Okay, I just sketched this like last night. So again, but I want to make a point because you have the river that turns right there. Depending on the direction of the water, if it's going west to east, I think, or north, I can't remember. If it's going from left to right on the screen, it won't be bad. But if you have it come from the other direction, it has a turn, like a centrifuge is gonna, centrifugal force is gonna pull all that debris hitting right on that. So like planning for weather is a little tricky because we don't know. But this is just like I was just kind of brainstorming. Right? I didn't really create any designs for this call. So these are some site notes. We can get back to this on the Q&A. These are some things that I believe Andy, I forgot his last name, but gentleman from Jonathan's team gave me some concerns. We could address it on the Q&A. I like to move past this quickly because this is more for a back and forth, I think. Okay, nothing in the chat. Anyone want to unmute or maybe we're good for now?
I think we're good for now. They're just interested in hearing you talk.
Okay, cool. So there's the technical specifications. Now this anchoring is for a freestanding garden. If there's infrastructure like walkways, boardwalks, it'll be a different anchoring, and we can't write drawings for that because that depends on the depth, the speed. If it's freestanding, it's pretty much a similar anchoring. If it's going to be with infrastructure, we need to do like not custom drawings, but a little bit more of a we have to attack that anchoring as is. But this is kind of here's the bird fencing for the leca to not fall out, and then we put bird post and fencing around that so that the geese don't eat it in the beginning until the plants get hardy. This is a little just showing that like this is leca, so this is a growing aggregate. This is we put these tarps down. You can see in the top, and we pour this leca in through a conveyor system or barge. And these are just and it's very buoyant. So these are just volunteers putting together an island. So you can see that it's not too complicated. Just we go slow and steady. We like to activate as many people as we can. And this is like again some approach to using trees and shrubs, like giving it some terrace. I mean, you can get very unique. I love this design with all these shrubs and trees. And then we put some ground cover. It looks super cool. We even did multi-tiered one, which I'm going to show here in a second, but just giving a little viewpoint of what it looks like here. And again, wetlands, if anyone doesn't understand about wetlands, you're creating habitat all the way, not so much the benthic, but way on the root zone, all the way to the top to the pollinators for birds. We've got trees in the wild mouse. We have like other birds that kind of hang out there. So it can get as unique and diverse as you want it to be. So I think that really it opens up like a whole canvas of you basically have a canvas to create wildlife, which is super cool, interesting. I'm gonna breeze through this because this might be different for Iowa, but just we've proven all this exists with our research. So about even more wildlife than this. This is I can go 3 pages worth. So I'll pause here about the community impact. The community impact is not going to be the same when they're freestanding versus having walkway and access. We've went through both. It's dramatically different. And we know this because as we put more infrastructure, the numbers grew, not only in program attendance, educational. We had about 3,500, I'm sorry, we had about 1,800 educational program attendees. And here, all these numbers are on pace to be more than in 2025. Okay. And so the annual visits, we had about 67,000 visits and about just under 280 events. These are free events. And all of these numbers are going to be surpassed this year, uh, based on what we've gauged so far. 1 second, please. Sorry, school is not in session yet. I had to make sure the girls are quiet. Uh, the environmental impact is pretty way beyond I've ever imagined. We actually have 9 existing research studies right now. We're, like I said, we're very experimental on where we approach our managing our organization. So we've done water quality. This is the gardens at the Chicago Botanic Garden. So the really nice, attractive part is, the gardens and seeing going to have a concert or yoga or beer on the wall mile. But most of our research is really deep rooted from the beginning, back from the thesis of Josh, and that allows us to really win these high level IDNR, EPA grants because we have irrefutable research based on our size. So we've done one 5-year research study on water quality. This is only, mind you, on the first pilot that we did in 2017 of 1,500 square feet. So right now we have 15,000 square feet, right? And so we took over 890 samples, and I can send you the research studies later, but like this is the deduction of phosphorus and nitrogen, and that's only 1,500 square feet. We rebooted this 5-year study starting in 24 to be released in 29, and that's on the 15,000 square feet we have now. So we're going to be testing a 15 times the size in square footage of biofilm and root zone. Well, minus the walkway, you know, maybe just under 15,000. I hear a question or someone just accidentally unmuted. Is there someone that wanted to ask a question real quick? No? Okay, this is an example of like a lake that we did in the UK that had algae bloom. So we just did a bunch of these freestanding gardens. Again, no real human access, but just a habitat approach. So these are all photos from the Wild Mile. Uh, and we've also done testing on zooplankton, so measuring dock versus bank versus floating wetlands, and it's a pretty obvious difference. And so this right here is the riverine. I mentioned a riverine section. This little riverine that like I said, trying to replicate what's in an existing riverine in an existing river. And this is the underbelly shot with the lilies and the pumpkin seed fish and different fish. Because we're always bringing some innovation and design to the concept of floating green infrastructure. This little pool here, this little horseshoe shape. Once we put the false bottom on, we can put lilies there or more mussels, or a professor can get in waiters and do a class while the students sit around there. That was the original idea. We just haven't built the false bottom yet. We built the false bottom over here. It's a little complicated to put a false bottom in an existing infrastructure, but it's in the future. Uh, Again, taking the gardens and doing a little more different designs. So we have the trees, and we've 9 tree species right now. I know 4 of the 9, so just I can name some of them. The red maple, the river birch, pussy willow, the pawpaw, and I know those are the successful ones so far. On the left side, you can see tiered system, having tiered gardens with shrubs and adding some vertical view to the plants. We realized this little circle is a little small, could have been a lot wider, but again, it's a test. I don't know if any of those have been to the High Line, but we love the trees coming through one of the sections. And of course, that was in the soil. So really, how can we replicate floating trees or trees coming through a walkway? So uh, our team custom built these with our dock supplier, these little shells that we put these crates in, and the water comes through. And one of the next ideas is having a promenade with like 20 of these. So it's like you're not really in a forest, but you'll get kind of a forest feel. So we spread these out, but the goal is to make that everything always parlays into another design within the Wall Mile or for other cities. So it's always like a learning experience. Like I said, this is a living laboratory. We've reintroduced freshwater mussels for the first time in 90 years. We're in our fifth season, and we have about 4,300 mussels in those false bottom buckets. This is the riverine section that I showed earlier. This is right there. A new design innovation with Biomatrix, our partner, is okay. We have habitat under the wetlands, but what under the walkway? So these shelter shells are for small fish, that for minnows, and for other aquatic life that are small to kind of be in there under the dock. So creating habitat in every corner that we can think of. And these are custom concrete shells that took 77 iterations. It's a special concrete blend. Uh, so it looks simple, but really took 77 different iterations to get to this point. Some pocket design concepts. This is like just, the little mini wow models you can plop in and have different attributes. Um, People like us, I guess. And that's it. That's the presentation. So I'll keep this up here in case I've got to reference something.
Great. Thank you so much. So many great ideas. So many, like you said, opportunities for creativity and, trying stuff out. I definitely encourage people to follow the Wild Mile and Urban Rivers on social media because there's a lot more there that Zachary didn't get to as far as the awesome public programming that you guys have. I know you guys just had like a celebration or like an anniversary party or something.
It's an annual block party. It's basically just
Okay.
throwing a party for the community. Our technically 10-year anniversary for the first install will be next summer. So,
Very
but
cool.
we don't know what that is because we're doing a lot of building next year, luckily.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, we are getting some questions now, so I'll go ahead and read them out to you, Zachary, and
Sure,
feel free to refer to slides if you need to.
sure.
Um, Circling back to your comment on establishing stewardship early, how do you typically go about attracting early buy-in and ensuring long-term maintenance needs will be addressed?
It's great. Well, like I said, our first install is in 2017. So we have uh, 9 years of building a community of gardens, starting from the first install that was very small, and the four pilots after that, and then obviously the 2 mile. And we also section in two other sections in the north and south of the river that didn't show, that are not relevant, or it just didn't show them. But like really, for the beginning, for us, we did it from the beginning. Now, if we go to another city, which is not going to be the same of Urban River's history, is that we have to work with a local NGO that has a pretty, I wouldn't say it has to be huge, but a strong, a reliable volunteer base. So, like in San Antonio, it's River Aid San Antonio. In Portland, it's a Human Access Project. And in Lower Passaic in New Jersey, it's the Iron Mountains Community Group. So we need to have a local NGO that we work with for any city they work with, or unless the Parks and Recs wants to put into their maintenance budget, right? So, but even if it wasn't Parks and Rec, you should have residents still do it. So that's like the beginning, and then long term. So, for example, when we built our project in San Antonio, when we raised the money from the bond, or as we're working through the bond that we're raising money through, we built in 3 years of maintenance for that organization. So they have 3 years locked in to take care of their maintenance, even though they're already doing it with the city. That allows them to build momentum to get more maintenance grants or get built into a budget. We can't do it in perpetuity, but we advocate, not even really advocate, for any of the NGO that we work with locally, there should be a multi-year maintenance budget built into the money raised for the first project. I think that is, we felt would be substantial to get the momentum underneath, but nothing can be guaranteed. We still have to raise some money for maintenance, but luckily we got 90% of it with volunteers. So it's tricky. And it's not going to be a copy and paste situation everywhere.
All right, great. How are they anchored? Does the anchor cause them to go underwater during floods?
Well, the flood, and I got into this, I think this is going to be in, uh-oh, hold on. I'm going to answer your question about the anchoring. Um, yeah, so I was told that the tidal fluctuation is 5 to 10 feet. Of course, we don't know if that's not during flood. So basically, we look at the 100-year data, and we'll add 20% of that data to our slack line on the anchoring. Right. So if they're freestanding gardens and say the from the river surface down to the silt is 12 feet and the storm surge could be 6 feet, then we'll probably put a 20-foot slack line on that. So I mean the slack line is going to hang there. So when they raise, it's going to stretch out. Now the worst case scenario, like that it goes above our margin, is that the plants get flushed and with the replant. But the modules won't be damaged. They're stainless steel marine grade floats with flanges that are all stainless steel and all the attachments. So we have not seen a case where they got flushed out. Except I think one time in like the UK that Galen was working on, and they had to replant, right? But now the anchoring will also change. Is it freestanding, like these archipelagos that I've shown somewhere over here? Let me see here. Like these are freestanding, or is it the wall mile with the infrastructure where they'll be anchored to the walkway, and the walkway will be anchored to the river bottom? Which the walkway anchoring is a whole other anchoring system with helical anchors that are spiraled into the silt with stretch bands that are like very marine grade. So that your approach, the wall mile or freestanding or infrastructure will also change the anchoring and the depth and the tidal. So it's really like this formula that has to start from scratch.
So
So
it's kind of situational.
yeah, yeah. But those are some basics behind it. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Can you expand a little bit more on the actual like maintenance of the plants themselves?
Well, the flow. Okay, so Galen, our supplier is Biometrics Water Solutions. He's been in business for about 15 years. They're about 20 to 25 years in lifespan. The coconut coir will get overtaken by the root zone on some of the models. The rest is stainless steel. So we have, we don't have the data for that. We're looking at 20, 25 years now. I can say this, we've had with Corps engineer permits, we have to get third-party engineering to assess our hardware every 6 months. We've done that every 6 months for 9 years, and we've only had to replace one flange, and we have like 329 gardens out there, right? So it's like very high level. They are more expensive than some others, but for good reason, in our opinion. And so that's the lifespan that we know of. Now, as far as plants, our regrowth rate is 80 to 85%. You will have failure in the beginning. You don't know the BioBlitz is going to work. We started with 50 varieties. Now we have a strong 37. So plant maintenance is like anything that's going to die and become, but that's working with the native plants. But as far as the hardware, it's very, very durable from what we know and what we have. We don't have like 30-year plus data right now.
Okay. These are so pretty and inviting. Talk a little bit about safety for people coming to walk on the boardwalks, etc. I saw that the installers are wearing life jackets. You also show the open water area without the false bottom. How safe slash dangerous are these for the general public or for little kids walking on the river?
That's a great point. I realize how many slides I have. Uh, let me bring up this photo. So, and this is the wild mouse. So there's only like right here and like right. So this is where the kayak launch is. So there's some open area. Now, first thing, 95% of the wild mouse is covered by gardens. So you're gonna land on plants. Second thing is these open areas, there's signage. We have life floats and ladders. They do follow the marina grade safety protocol. Of course, like I said, 95% of it's got gardens. So if you trip and fall, you will land in plants and get wet. Unless your bottom hits one of the flanges and it like you jump on it. For kids, like again, this is marina protocol. So same as a marina. When you walk down a marina, there's guardrails, just like on our ramps, on our walkway. But once you get to the boat area, you have to be conscious of where you are and there's signage. And obviously we have, life rings and ladders every I think 150 feet. And then we went even further because the city was worried about this. So we contacted the Imagineers from Disney through a contact of ours, and we hosted 3 webinars with them and got their insight. We're like, what about calf high guardrails in those small open areas? Well, that's a problem. What Disney didn't do it because when people are taking photos or playing, they can trip and then cause even more of a hazard. So they have less issues with no guardrail between knee height and below than nothing at all. So we followed not only the Marina Protocol of Illinois and the Marina Protocol for the piers in marinas in Chicago, but we also follow what the Imagineers did in some of the Disney parks that are near water. And we submitted all that data to the city, and they said it was way more sufficient than it needed to be. And now we're 5 years in with the Wall Mile, 67,000 visits last year. So say about 225,000 people, 250,000 visits since the beginning, and only one person won the water. One person won the water, like, but we thought they just kind of walked into the water. I don't know if they're having some type of emotional issue or what going on, but it wasn't someone who tripped and fell. It was someone that was a little more like being negligent. And that's all we've had in 4 years. So that's kind of where we're at with our data on safety.
All righty. Let's see. Do these hold
Oh,
up over the winter months with ice, or do the floats need to be removed during the freeze?
so the Chicago Mile, Chicago River does not freeze. It gets very brittle, like peanut brittle ice, because it's got effluent coming through and CSOs. So for better or for worse, it doesn't get chunky. These have not been removed. Our floats from 2017 have not been removed, these gardens, but it doesn't get chunky ice. Now, as Galen would always say, we designed for that. So if you get thick ice, now there's a couple of things when it comes to ice. How thick is it? What's the speed? Right? So thick ice moving barely nowhere, or 1 inch moving real fast, there's a big difference. Now, I can't get a zoomed in photo, but on the edges of the gardens, what we can do and what he's done for Norway and the Delaware River is every 50 feet or so, we have these like curved spokes, if you will. They're like kind of V's sticking out. So like when ice does come out, it cracks it. But that's with those with like thick ice and speed. And we only have like two cases out of 200 plus projects. So we need more information. But there are ways to design for that. What I've heard, we have not had to deal with it in Chicago River. But unless we're talking like 3 inches coming, 5 feet per second, we just need more data to accommodate that and see if we would pull out of that river or anything.
All right. How have you navigated permitting with site designs, specifically the sites that are more iterative slash evolving over time?
I don't know. How have you navigated permitting? Well, permitting, building anything in an urban environment is a headache of permitting. I think anyone who's built a row house or a building or a skyscraper, it's like that's what it is. Now, for us, we have to go through the same thing. So, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, the EPA, the DNR, the Coast Guard, CDOT, which is Chicago Department of Transportation, property owner, adjacent property owner, insurance broker. Well, insurance broker is not really a permitting, but like they have to approve it. They have to approve all the safety. So it's 8 yeses in a way. And we've gotten 7 permits. We had not got one denied, and they are 3-year terms. So most of them get renewed. And how are we not going to permit the site design, especially the site are more iterative. The iterative involving doesn't we're not doing anything in our iterations that are not allowed. Now, if I had a floating wetland, well, I can't draw on here, can I? It'd be really nice if I can draw on here. If I did a wetland out in this river on the west side and I put a bridge from one walkway to the next walkway, I would have to redo a new permit. Another access point from land to water, which is what we're building next, another permit. But anything that's like kind of similar to this doesn't need to be revised. So we could be iterative. I mean, building a riverine system with a false bottom, that's still putting a wetland in the water. Uh, so we have anything too drastic. We know kind of that fine line, like bridge over water, access point, aeration. Those are the three but we don't, as far as the iterative things we've done so far, they don't warrant another permit. Plus, the Corps is having the third-party engineer come out every 6 months. So if they would have saw something, they have to report that. But like, we're just not doing anything drastic. And if we do it like an access point, it's like a whole nother permit. We treat it as such. So, uh, yeah, we're in constant communication with them because we have other sites and they go slow, so we have to keep everyone updated.
All right. Do cities or owners need special insurance to protect themselves?
So this is a case that might not, that's going to be situational. All right. So in this case of the Wild Mile, we hold the insurance, we hold the easement, and we hold the permits all under Urban Rivers, the nonprofit, right? Because no one owns the water. So yes, we have insurance that's required for sure. It's not cheap. The easement is just easement for it's like a 99-year or 40-year term. And then the permit's the permit with the Corps of Engineers. So that's, like I said, 3 years or 5-year renewal. If we were to do a project in another city, that's who the local partner would have to step into play. So, for example, in San Antonio with River Aid San Antonio, they are the local partner, right? So we're the design, engineering, and installation partner. We're not managing a park in that particular sense because we don't have a team there doing programming. So they will hold the insurance. We can walk and help them, but it would be them that would hold the insurance. In the lower and can't remember what city it was. I think maybe Hallandale Beach or I don't know. I can't really remember, but the city wanted to hold the insurance, and that was their deal, and that's fine. And they would have an agreement with the local NGO, but it's never required. Can't remember. It's never required. I can tell you that. Definitely the city doesn't require it, or the Corps doesn't require it. Uh, and the special insurance is, and this is the other part of your question, is we are insured like a marina. We have access to the water. We have open access to the water. We have a floating mechanism. Doesn't matter if it's plants or if it's boardwalk, there's floats. So we get insured like a marina. They don't have a special wildlife park floating. It just designated as a marina. It's the same attributes. They don't designate it different if it's a boardwalk for people on yoga and people going to their boat. At
Great.
least that's
That's
what the
all the
insurance people
questions I
tell
see
us.
now,
Yeah.
but keep typing. I have a question.
Sure.
So, I have gotten really into this. So, I'm actually visiting this weekend, so I'm really excited to see it in person.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
but I also know that there's some businesses, right there next to the Wild Mile that are pretty supportive of this. And I didn't know how you're partnering with them for, events or if their staff has been involved in any of the volunteer work. I'm curious to see what those partnerships are like.
Yeah, I mean the corporate partnerships like we have so there's REI right here. This is a paint company that moved out. This is our office, and then there's Whole Foods there. You know, um, very different. Like REI has like donated like $5,000 once in a while. Some people come out with they definitely come out for the installations. That is our busiest volunteering event. Actually, you wouldn't think otherwise, but like people want to come out and do that labor. Uh, and Whole Foods was supported at the beginning, and then they changed with the ownership, and like the whole community partnership evolved since Amazon bought it. So kind of not, it's not what it once was. But we have corporate work days. So it's a small amount of our revenue, but we have corporate work days where they come out between 15 and 30 to 40 people, and they do like a half a day volunteer, get in the boat, pick up trash, build some birdhouses, we do lunch, etc. And we have more of the corporate work days. That is still like they're like paying for our time and they do a donation. That is that's probably 85% of the corporate involvement that we have. And then because they're still volunteering, they're bringing their teams getting their volunteer hours via the Wild Mile. Uh, so the local partners, yeah, they're they have probably a lot of people asking for their support. So this area is changing very much. There's like a concert hall across the water, salt shed that I recommend you go check out. It's a river, it's a venue on the river. It's super cool. So yeah, it's all changed each year with each partner locally. Uh, not like not to the level where it would allow us to expand infrastructure, but it helps us our operations. You know what I mean? Like so all those work days of the corporates add up to help some of the staffing for programming, but funding for operations and infrastructure are kind of separated because the dollar amounts are way different. Yeah.
Sure.
So
All
that
right,
was a
we
little
got
long-winded answer.
Yeah, no worries. We got another question. What guidance or tips would you give to us in Central Iowa if we wanted to get started with moving forward to choosing the best site and making these happen in Iowa?
Great question. So I am biased. I love doing it downtown where all the people are, the Riverwalk, but I have to get kind of bit brought down to earth from my team. Like the Des Moines River is a waterway that needs to be respected. There's flooding. You have trees come through. Although the dams keep the water still, when that water is in a flood zone, they're going to release that water and you're going to be flushed out. So I personally want to be downtown. But once I saw these lakes, I feel like you have less regulatory issues, you have less environmental, no, weather conditions that are detrimental, and they're still very close. Now, I don't know which one's the most actively used by the people in Iowa. I'd probably start at the lakes. I would start where the one is most used recreation and is like in the Woodlawn Lake example in San Antonio, we chose that. Now, I'd love to do San Antonio River. It's kind of weird because it's narrow, and I can go on and on about that river. But that lake is the most used lake in the city. It's getting millions of dollars of renovation, and it's the biggest waterway it's the biggest waterway near the city, and it's still very much used by everyone in San Antonio. So like it's a vortex. So I'd start. These lakes are great because they're close. They have trail systems here. Easter Lake is really,
They're both
uh,
highly, highly used.
yeah, I feel like Gray's Lake, I don't know enough, but like, so to answer the question without going to the whole design, a Pandora's box there, I would start in these lakes and then maybe we can get something in this area. But like, that's the next level of conversation is first local NGO or local NGO or government participation with maintenance. We'll go over about volunteers later. Who's going to do the maintenance? Who wants to do the maintenance? And then what location is the best location? Is that's like the first two things we have to get off in the beginning. So, but I'm looking forward to have that next conversation very much.
All right. Keep typing questions if you have them. I'll just keep throwing random ones at you. What's the craziest wildlife or the most surprising wildlife you found on the Wild Mile so far? I know you guys got some researchers out there all the time.
Uh, I mean, baby beavers, I guess, is definitely like, pretty cool to see. We had the Chonkosaurus, the big turtle. That was more downstream. So on the Wild Mile, baby beavers for sure. Uh, was it a hawk? I think eagle or hawk we saw recently. I think baby beavers have the biggest attraction. River otter. For 4 years, we saw the head of a river otter, but that was a muskrat, so we couldn't confirm it was an otter. For 4 years, like this, it was like this myth. We finally confirmed it last year with some proper footage. And side note, and like I said on LinkedIn, we have 38 wildlife cameras around 18 on the river on the Wild Mile, and we have like 20 more throughout the entire city. Um, and there's a whole slew of stuff that are coming in on wildlife. But the red, what is it called? The red-winged black robin or black.
Oh, red-winged blackbird.
Yeah, I'm not good at birds, but that was a cool one. But I think the baby beaver probably takes the top spot.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. That's just in, the heart of one of our most urban areas in the country.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
So I would say that, and then Phil would know more, but we have wildlife photos for days. We have like tens of thousands of them we've been documenting.
great. Well, we'll give people, let's see, we got another question coming in. Can you expand on that riverine feature within the floating islands? What are the main objectives? Do you do anything with fisheries? Yeah, anything else?
Yeah, I'm gonna get to it. Okay. What kind of river feature within the okay. So first, it's just basically inspired by a natural riverine that you see in a natural river environment. So we wanted to now when you're standing here with the vegetation, you wouldn't even, if you went like this, it'd be super real. First thing was to put lilies, which we kind of failed at, we got better at. Second, to host all of the freshwater mussels. So this false bottom has all those mussel bunkers in there. And we saw some fish here, so they can come through some of the sides up in the top of the false bottom. Those really that the genesis was the mussels, and then it went to the lilies, and then the fish came too. But we have way more fish coming in those wildlife. So on this false bottom, well, yes, the riverine. This was supposed to be an educational, kids around, professor and waiters. We haven't gotten to that project yet, actually. We got the false bottom, but we haven't gone any further. But I know it's going to happen sooner or later. And as far as aesthetic, I think I don't know. It's just mimicking a natural river system as much as we can in an urban environment.
All right. Any other questions for Zachary? Any parting thoughts, Zachary, on all of your projects and what kind of potential you see here in Iowa for something like this?
Yeah, I mean, I'm biased, obviously, because okay, here's what I'll say. Building these structures is not more difficult than a bridge. And I think that one thing I'm doing a talk in the UK next month about using the wild model as a case study. Yes, we'd love more projects as an organization, but that's not the point. The point is that river-based projects stopped at the land. And there's some reason for that, but I would argue there's a lot of reasons why that is not plausible. We've already proven it. Yes, some rivers need to be respected, but if it's not in the river, then it could be in the local lake that I'm learning myself, right? I'm expanding my own knowledge. So, like, it's possible. And if you want to build a connection to the river, walking by it is not going to be the same as building it and walking on it. Like, we don't have 10,000 volunteers and 300 river rangers just because people like water. No, I say maybe 5% come from conservation and science backgrounds. I think we did the poll a couple years ago, like 90% were all over the board on occupation. They just feel connected to it, myself included. So I feel like it's possible. Uh, and if you want people to actually care for the water, they need to be on it, need to build things on it, and they need to be like engaged with it. That's not saying a land-based riverwalk doesn't do that, but it doesn't do it as deep as a project this. Whether it's us building or not, just the approach in itself is way deeper than just walking near the water because you just don't get that connection. And we all and everybody's read about like an emotional connection with things. You need to like touch it, feel it, grab it, right? So that's what I'd say, and I'd love to learn more about what location, if everyone is excited to get behind this. And also, lastly, it takes a coalition. The whole saying, it takes a village to raise a child. It takes a coalition to get this through. We cannot do this with all of our partners. We can't do it in another city with all multiple partners. Like, it's not like we design on SketchUp and call it a day. It is a whole thing. When I went to Chattanooga 3 weeks ago, the first the first talk was 30 people, and then the site visits was 40 people, all the architects, the NGOs, the habitat people. It takes a village to do this, and without that, it's really not going to happen. Besides the money and the permitting, you need the coalition and the desire to do something that is very doable, very, 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 very doable. So, before I go into like a 5 minute monologue, that's what I'll end with.
All right. Well, we really appreciate all of the insight and the background and yeah, just the excitement about sharing the possibilities. So I don't see any more questions in the chat. So thanks again, Zachary. And we look forward to sharing this with other folks in our group. And hopefully we'll have more talks with your organization going forward.
I sure hope so. Thank you, Aaron, for your time.
Yep. Bye.